Hi, today I want to talk about capitalism. This has been my obsession for the last few months, and to me it is fascinating how we grow up in this culture and in these school systems in this world, and we grow up and we're led to believe that this current economic system of capitalism that we have, like this is the one and only system, and there's nothing else. You can't even imagine the world without capitalism. It is so ingrained into us by movies and culture and books and grown-ups and society as a whole that this current system that we have is the best possible system. But if you are anything like me, if you grew up with the internet and access to more information than the previous generations, then I'm sure you had the feeling that something is deeply wrong with our world. We don't talk about how the productivity of workers has been rising steadily for the last several decades, and while at the same time as productivity has been raising, the wages that people get for this increased amount of productivity has been staying the same. So what do we get here? It's really simple. Productivity has been going up, but actual wages have been stagnant if you convert the value into purchasing power of what you could buy today with the same amount of money. So what happens in between here? Where does all this productivity go? What's been happening? Well, as you might have guessed, this has something to do with the massive, incredible wealth inequality that we have been seeing. So this increased productivity, this increased production of value by workers, by everyone, by you and me, this increased productivity doesn't give us any more value, even though we produce more and more value. This gives more value to the top 1%, to the people who own the corporations, not the people that work for the corporations. So there is a really simple equation that we could make. Let's say that we have here equipment and labor, and then what comes out from this is value. So equipment is, if you say that you have a company and let's say you're producing tables, then the equipment are the saws and the lumber and woodworking tools and everything that you need, the rent for the building and whatever. The labor is the skill of the actual worker. It's the value added by the worker using the equipment. And the output of these two together, the worker producing value with their labor using equipment, is the value. Does that make sense? That should make sense. So let's say that we have some absolute units, and equipment is worth 5 and the labor of the worker is worth 5. You put them two together and then you get 10. But now you're the owner of this table producing company and you're looking at this equation and you're thinking, well, if I sell my tables at 10, then I don't get anything. I have to pay for the equipment, that is 5. I have to pay for the laborer, I have to pay for their skill and their time and their work, they need 5. And table is 10 and I sell it and I make no profit. So something is wrong with this equation. This is not how capitalism works. And the only way how capitalism could possibly work, the only way we could make any profit is by paying less for the worker's value. So even though the worker in reality produced 5 worth of value, what you pay to the worker is free. And what happens? Seriously, put 5 plus 3 equals 7. No, 5 plus 3 is 8. I know my math. Okay, but what's left? What's left is 2. And 2 is what you as the owner of the company get by doing absolutely nothing. You pay for the equipment, you pay for the worker less than they are worth, and this whole process costs you 8, and then you sell the tables at 10, and then you pocket the 2. This is the only way capitalism can work, and it's always, I had this thought in the back of my mind, that the only way anyone ever employs you is if the compensation, if the wage that they give you is less than the actual value that you produce. And this is perverted and messed up, and this should deeply trouble you, as it's deeply troubling me. That you produce value and you get less than you put in. What truly is troubling here is not that the worker gets less for their value, it's that they have no control over what is done with this. This is called the surplus. This is what is left over after you pay for all the expenses of all the equipment and all the labor, and you pay for all that. What is left is your surplus. So in a capitalistic system, the workers have no say what is done with the value that they produce. The worker goes into the plant or whatever, they make the table, they spend their 8 hours in there, then they get out and they have no say into where to sell the table, what to do with the table, in fact, how to operate the factory, to remove the factory. They have absolutely no say in any of that. All of that is for the employer to decide. Now imagine if instead the minority 1% sucking value out of 99% of the society. What if we had the same situation, but instead of this 2 surplus value going to the owners, this value is put aside and every single 1,000 workers of this hypothetical company, each one of them gets a vote of what to do with the company. If they will move their production to India and all of them lose their jobs, what do you think what they will vote for it? If the company is run by a board of directors of 10 people who just want to maximize profit for themselves and they couldn't care less about the employees if they get more profit, then yes, they will move the production to India. Because that will maximize their profit. They go to India, they need to pay the people less, and then they ship the goods back over to whatever country they're from, and then they can sell them and profit for them, and couldn't care less about the workers. If instead the workers who actually put their work and effort into producing these goods, tables in this instance, then they could decide if they want to move to India. Well, they actually don't, because that would devastate their community. They have families there. They stay there and they keep their jobs. Also, if workers actually decided what to do with the surplus, many of these horrible psychopathic effects of capitalism would be reduced. For example, if all the workers got to say what to do in their lumber mill, do they make lumber tables in the lumber mill? I don't know. But if all of them lived and worked around this plant, then they would have a say of, well, maybe we don't dump these toxic chemicals into the river because our children are playing in there. Like, you wouldn't do that. If everyone got to vote, including the janitor, then everyone would benefit much more and the company would work for the good of the community instead of working for the good of just a small minority, of maximizing profits, of sucking any value out from the people and workers that they possibly can, squeezing a town dry and then moving into another town. Like a leech or a virus or whatever. Instead of that, it's a community who decide what to do with the value they produce. And this is not a new idea. This is not some kind of utopian idea. These companies do exist. And some of these companies are really successful. This is a wide topic and there's many things that I could have articulated much better. This is just me ranting. This kind of my, first sort of puking out my thoughts in any way that I know how in this current state that I'm in, learning about it. I'm not as good as explaining this stuff, but hopefully there was something that you got out of this video. What I'm saying is, the world is not democratic. I hope for a future where it is democratic, where people are more educated, and if there's any big choice in our society, then every human being actually gets a vote. Do we want to sacrifice profits for a better and healthier world and community, and all those kind of choices that people would make? So I hope for a world like that. And if we believe that we have democracy in general in the countries, why couldn't we have democracy in the workplace? Why do we have a small minority of kings deciding what to do with the peasants working and having absolutely no say in their working conditions and what is done with the value they produce? That is left to the kings to decide, and whatever they choose is what you have to live with. That is not democratic, and no company should work like that. And then if we had companies that are run by the people, then the general public could also make choices. You could look at the table and you could see if it's done by a capitalist corporation or if it's done by a worker co-op. These things are called worker co-ops, where people collectively decide what to do with the profits and what to do with the value they create. And I, for one, I would buy the table that is done by the worker co-op. And there are many arguments against this and blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, money speaks so loud, money is so powerful, and that is the reason why capitalism has gone so far. That is the reason why wealth inequality has stretched to such an extreme, where corporations control the laws that are being made, where corporations control how countries operate. That is absurd, and we're all continuously being brainwashed as if this current economic system is the only one that could ever work, that we exist in, which is a total mess. But more and more people are waking up to this idea and this truth and understanding that this isn't working. This is not how human beings naturally should operate. If we list personality trait by personality trait, we see that corporations have the properties of psychopaths, and we shouldn't have to live with psychopaths, because that's how I felt when I worked in a large company, just a cog in a machine for producing profit. It's absurd, and wealth inequality is obscene. I've talked about it before, but hope you got something out of my rant and rambling. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope it made any sense. I'm sorry for my sort of, absent-minded, sort of not really being able to express my thoughts as best as they could be expressed. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. Take care and all the best.